Dillon Gabriel is the Browns starting QB. Why now? I'll talk about it coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. I thought they'd wait one more week to make a change, but here's why a quarterback change to Dillon Gabriel makes some sense. We'll talk about it, plus why this doesn't have to signal the Browns are giving up on winning this season, and we'll play you some audio from both Dillon Gabriel and how he explained his readiness for this opportunity, plus Joe Flacco's thoughts on being demoted to the backup quarterback role and how he still plans on impacting the team. I do first, though, want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So, the big thing that comes out of today, obviously, with the news that Dillon Gabriel is the Browns' new starting quarterback, is just the question of, like, why now? Why is this a decision that has to be made? And so I'll read you some of what Kevin Stefanski said. We know Kevin Stefanski. He doesn't like to give a lot away in terms of conversations that he has internally, reasons for decisions. He's not going to give a lot of that to you. But he continued to harp on the fact, like he said post-game on Sunday, that everyone needs to be better. His exact quote was, I think the big thing is we all need to be better. We need to be better. We need to coach better. We need to block better, catch better, run better, all of the above. We need to be better. And I know the quarterback position gets quite a bit of scrutiny, and I understand that, but this is about our entire team playing better. What I sort of insinuate from that, and he also dropped this is not about one person line on us a couple times as well. And I think what I insinuate from those answers is that, yes, he understands that this offense and the issues that they have right now are multiple. It's not just one thing. And likely a quarterback change doesn't fix everything. But my understanding of it is, like, this is something that he can change to try to get a different result, that he can switch up a little bit here, and that they're just looking for a little bit more. Like, yes, he's expecting the offensive line to get to be better. He's holding his guys accountable for that. He's expecting guys like Jerry Jeudy not to drop passes. He's holding Jerry Jeudy and other receivers accountable for that. It's not about that there's not other things that need to be fixed. It's that this is one of the only levers he can pull right now to try to get some sort of change or breathe some life into the offense. And I can understand that. So everybody being better, yes, but the quarterback position could use an upgrade as well. And they feel that Dillon Gabriel at this juncture is the option they have to turn to. I mean, let's face it. This offense is at rock bottom. And while I thought they were going to wait another week because of the circumstances surrounding week 5, weird schedule, you're going to London to play the Vikings, it's going to throw off kind of your normal week of preparations and all the things that kind of came with that. And how you sort of get ready for a week, it's different. And Dillon's still a rookie who is getting a feel for those things. Now, Stefanski, raved about the fact that he's already gotten pretty acclimated to everything, and he's gotten better and better each week, and certainly understands how these weeks work as you get ready for games and all that. So that, I think that's big picture part of it here, that they feel he's equipped to even handle this right now. I just thought it was because of those circumstances. And another point too, like, Brian Flores is not a tough defense, is not an easy matchup for a rookie quarterback to go up against from a defensive standpoint. So that's not going to be easy for him either. And so there's a number of circumstances here that just made me feel they were going to wait one more week. They'd give him a normal week of preparation going into Pittsburgh, and that would be when they made the decision. But they pulled the trigger this week. And so, and I honestly understand it. Despite the fact I thought they'd wait another week, I understand it because, again, if this offense, these first 4 weeks, is what rock bottom looks like, the least you could do is change something up. And the one thing that they can change right now is the quarterback position. It's hard to fix your offensive line aside from making a trade like they did for Cam Robinson this week, or it's hard to fix the receiver room without making a trade. Like the issues they're having there, those are only fixable with like transactions right now. I don't know that either of those things get fixed like this season or like immediately. Those aren't easy fixes. But the quarterback thing, you can make a change. insert somebody else and have them see if they can spark the offense a little bit. And so I get where that's coming from. I 100% feel that I don't think this solves everything. I don't think that all of a sudden the Browns offense is going to go from one of the worst in football, averaging 14 points per game, all those different things. And then all of a sudden now they're going to be scoring like 30 points a game and be a juggernaut just because they switched to Dillon Gabriel. But if at the very least you can pick this offense up off the basement floor and lift it into, the kitchen of the house and make it like closer to an average NFL offense that actually looks functional and can actually score some points and maybe every now and then score 20 points for you with the incredible defense that you have right now. I think that makes it a worthwhile move in the long run. And the other part of this too is selling it to the team. Because that's the other thing that we all harp on, right? Is once you pivot to the rookies, it does almost signify, hey, we're focusing on developing these guys. And that was always the theme kind of coming into the season. But I think that in that locker room, like if anyone's thinking that they can't sell to the locker room, that this is the right move right now, because it started out as Flacco gives us the best chance to win. That's why we made the move. That's why we made him our starting quarterback at the beginning of the year. And we all thought like he'd make it through the first 6 games and then they'd have conversations about maybe changing it up. But I think if you're wondering how they sell it to the locker room, I think it's pretty simple. Look what the offense has done these first couple weeks. Like if you're not sold that we need to try, if guys aren't convinced that that something that the quarterback position hasn't been part of the problem, or if they think that there's not issues going on with this offense that needs all you have to do is show them the tape. Essentially, is what I'm trying to say. Put on the tape and say, look what this offense has done these first 4 weeks, and tell me that in the name of winning, we don't need to change something and do something differently. That's why I think it's actually a pretty easy sell. And guys in the locker room were asked about it. They all said relatively the same thing, like we're going to support whoever's back there. I think what also is puts all that part of the conversation in context is we heard from Joe Flacco today. We'll play you some of his audio and his understanding of why the decision was made. Like he talked about how the most disappointing thing for him is these first 4 weeks, they couldn't get anything going and the offense looked awful and they had so many problems and he feels responsible for that because he is the quarterback, but he that allowed him, like, while he didn't necessarily know it was coming, or he didn't necessarily think it was coming off the top of his head, or that he wasn't planning for being benched or being named the number 2 quarterback instead. He understands why the decision was made because they didn't do enough. And if Joe Flacco can understand that and process that, I certainly think the rest of his teammates can. When it comes to understanding that this is a move that is being made in the name of trying to still win football games for this Browns team that obviously is off to a 1-3 start, and sort of a miracle they're even 1-3, and just needs to figure something else out because this defense is otherworldly and they don't want it to go to waste. They want to still try to win football games. And so this can be sold as kind of that salvaging of the season, if you will. And I think that that's how most guys are sort of interpreting it. By the way, Stefanski also talked about Dillon, what he's kind of worked on behind the scenes, what he's seen. He said, obviously, from the second he's been here, he's been working hard, very intelligent. He's done a nice job throughout practice. This whole season has been learning for him and getting to understand the rhythm of an NFL week and what it looks like as a backup. Obviously, we feel like he's ready to go now as a starter. He also did mention that Gabriel had taken some first-team reps throughout these first 4 weeks of practice. So he's gotten some of the work with the ones, and that's obviously good news as well. We know he got plenty of work with the ones during training camp. But, I think from a number of angles, this move does make some sense. And we'll talk more about that specifically, why it doesn't have to be this giving up on the season. And Kevin also shared that it would be Flacco, the quarterback number 2, Shedeur Sanders staying as the quarterback number 3. What can we read into that? We'll talk about those things as well coming up on the Locked On Browns podcast. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Pick Plus awards than anyone else as of August 2025. They make cars that keep you and your family protected. From footwork to breathe work, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings that same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather, upholstery, plus all-wheel drive is standard in every crossover vehicle or crossover SUV, I should say, so you can drive with confidence throughout almost any season, which, listen, if you live in Cleveland, if you live in Northeast Ohio like I do, that's honestly great news about the four-wheel drive thing, because let's face it, you can get all 4 seasons in one single day here in Cleveland, especially this time of year. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, so I talked about it a little bit, but the way that this gets sold to the locker room, obviously, is just that the offense has been so bad that you absolutely positively like have to make a change here. And it doesn't have to be that they're giving up on the season. And I think what's interesting is, like, here's the thing. We know how this organization has felt about Dillon Gabriel for quite some time. It's the reason why he was ahead of Shedeur Sanders on the depth chart when training camp started. It's the reason why he remained that way throughout training camp. It's the reason he remained there when the season started. He was named the backup to Joe Flacco, and they were willing to move on from Kenny Pickett because they felt comfortable with what they had seen from Dillon Gabriel throughout the preseason and all that. And so I think this is almost just the culmination of all that work, and the Browns, wanting to sort of see if the guy they drafted really is up to the task, if you will. And so it doesn't have to be necessarily anything other than that. Obviously they've raved about Gabriel. They've talked so much about how they appreciated the meetings that they got to have with him during the pre-draft process and whatnot. So I think this is just them now basically entering a conversation. They feel like the time is now. They feel like the time is now to give him a shot. And at this point with the offense, what do you have to lose, right? Because it's been so putrid, and it hasn't been very pretty from start to finish. That of these first 4 games, that it makes a lot of sense. I do wonder though, and here's another interesting sort of part of this conversation. We know that the Browns have, or at least the way Jimmy Haslam has approached the job status and job security of Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski. We know that they are my expectations that they're back in 2026. We know that about sort of the way that Jimmy Haslam has approached this rebuild and the situation that they're kind of in this season, just in general. And what I think is interesting is that because we know that Dillon Gabriel was like their guy, and that they drafted him in the 3rd round because they really liked what he brought to the table, his intangibles, the fact that he was really, over 60 games played in college, so he had a ton of experience. He has a very high football IQ. We've talked about his quote unquote supercomputer brain that he possesses, that they like, and his ability to process things quickly in their estimation. Like, because he's their guy, this is going to now be like a chance to really evaluate Kevin as in terms of developing quarterbacks, because that's the one thing to this point that we haven't, that I know many of you, like you as a fan, with all the things that have been said about Stefanski and his offense and what he has or hasn't been able to accomplish to this point. I think we've all held out on the idea that, like, well, hey, once he gets his own quarterback in there, once he gets somebody that he gets to handpick, and Dillon Gabriel is very much somebody that he got to handpick. He had a larger say in that conversation this year and was more involved in the draft than ever. We saw him present at pro days and things like that. And with how much he raved about Dillon Gabriel and how much they liked him, this is a guy Kevin Stefanski got to have some say in picking and frankly in trying to develop now. And so I understand he's a third round pick. I understand that in most instances, third round picks in this league aren't going to become franchise starting quarterbacks for you. I 100% understand that those things are true. But I do think there's something to be said for now that you're turning to Dillon Gabriel, probably earlier than many of us expected. It does start this process of evaluating Stefanski as a quarterback developer. We know that to this point, the things that Stefanski has done well from a quarterback standpoint has been like, you take an average quarterback, he's gotten more out of them than most people have. We saw that with, first of all, his first calling card was that with Baker, he got the most out of Baker than anybody had to that point. Now that's kind of gone out the window because Baker's had some really good seasons down in Tampa Bay, right? We know that. And so he's kind of lost that to fall back on. But Jacoby Brissett, when he was here, first part of that first year with Deshaun starting, Jacoby put up some good numbers. Like he was having one of his best seasons as a pro under Kevin Stefanski in this offense. Then, you get the Joe Flacco run at the end of 2023 where he just looks brilliant, basically buys himself 2 more years of his career here in the NFL because he was on his couch and he goes from that to leading the Browns to the playoffs, and all of a sudden he gets 2 more years to try to play football. So like there was always these quarterbacks that were in here that like, well, he takes their game to the next level. And the Deshaun thing was supposed to work. We know all the circumstances surrounding that. It didn't, obviously. And that is a conversation for another day. We know how that goes. But clearly Deshaun didn't fit the offense that Kevin wanted to do. It's why they had to fire Alex Van Pelt. It's why they brought in Ken Dorsey. And then that didn't work either for Deshaun. But that experiment, it blew up royally in their faces. No matter who is to blame the most for bringing Deshaun in here, it didn't work. And so he gets a pass for the Deshaun thing not working out because we think Deshaun just didn't have it anymore. But this is now the first time that he's getting to like target and draft a guy that they were high on during the pre-draft process and then eventually turn things over to them, which is happening this week here in week 5, and then say, all right, you go out and play and let's see if we can develop this quarterback into something, even if he's not the franchise quarterback, even if he's like a serviceable backup or a guy that can bridge you to that franchise quarterback, whatever. That's sort of what you're looking at here. That's what they're trying to accomplish, is turn Dillon Gabriel, the guy that they loved, into a suitable NFL quarterback in their offense at the very least. And so the reason I think this is now all eyes on Kevin Stefanski is because it's the first time he's getting a chance to do that. And if it doesn't work out, if the offense does still look really, really bad, and again, I'm not saying he shouldn't make the decision and make the change here. They need something different with this offense because it's not working. It's been a colossal disaster to this point. But if that's the decision, and if you're leaning into the idea that Dillon Gabriel is going to be able to give you something, and the offense still stinks, or if he struggles, now Kevin's going to be right in the spotlight for criticism on like, well, can he develop these quarterbacks? Did he put him in the right situation? Those are all fair questions that are sort of going to come to the forefront here. And so I think that's really, really interesting about this move right now, is that sooner than we even expected, we're going to get to sit here and watch what Dillon does and understand that this is the guy the organization picked. And there's a world too where maybe they don't use those first round picks next year on a rookie quarterback, either of those first round picks. And if they don't, and they go into next year, I would assume that means they're going into next year with Dillon sort of as their guy. If he plays well enough here down the stretch of the season or whatever, where they're like, we got to give it a shot with him and see if we can get even more out of him. I mean, and that's a different world if they feel like that's the case, because then it seems like he must have had success this year. But if this thing doesn't get turned around, if it still is just as bad, if he's under duress all the time and it starts to screw with him as a player and a prospect, then there's more questions on the table for Stefanski about his ability to develop quarterbacks, which is like the one card he has left to play, right? I haven't had a chance to develop my guy. And so I think that's kind of an interesting conversation here that we're getting to sort of talk about sooner than we maybe thought. And that sort of comes to the forefront as they put Dillon Gabriel out on the field. With every game, with every play, with every series, we're going to be hyper-analyzing, why isn't Dillon having success? Why is he having success? Can Kevin Stefanski pull the most out of this guy? And those are the questions that I think are super important. And it's, it magnifies it times 10 because this is supposed to be their guy. This is supposed to finally be the guy that they handpicked to be a quarterback for and a starting quarterback for them. And if it doesn't work out, well, then all the questions kind of come back to the surface this offseason of like, how many more chances does this regime get? I think that's fair. I really do think that's fair. We'll talk more another time about like, does it start a proverbial clock on job security? But I think that that's an interesting conversation now, understanding what Dillon Gabriel's presence out there on the field means for this regime and means for this head coach, because everything that happens with Dillon Gabriel from this point forward is going to be hyper analyzed, and it's going to be questioned whether or not they can develop this player, and if they know what they're doing. It's going to be fair for the fans to sort of feel that way and analyze it that way. So we'll certainly talk about it on the show some more, but I think that's an interesting wrinkle or note that comes out of this conversation just in general. We'll hear from Dillon Gabriel. We heard from Dillon Gabriel and Joe Flacco today, and their thoughts on the change at quarterback, how Dillon feels like he's ready for it, how Joe's still going to have an impact on this team. I'll play you some audio from the press conferences. We also didn't really hear from Shedeur Sanders, and we got to talk about what he did today as well. That's all coming your way next on the Locked On Browns podcast. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. There's nothing better than an NFL season with FanDuel, and frankly, the best part is they have options for however you might like to bet. Maybe you're a prop bet person. You want to bet on a single player eclipsing a certain milestone or benchmark in a game. Maybe you want to combine that player's benchmark with a few other props, maybe even throw a money line in and build a same game parlay. Or you can just jump on the money line in real time as the action is unfolding in front of you. The options are endless. And that's what makes that's what makes every game, whether your team is playing or not, even more exciting when you follow along with FanDuel. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now and visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all the financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's a 401k, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture of where your finances are at, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on a laptop or your phone. Monarch does all the heavy lifting for you. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. My wife and I, we are trying to get some bigger projects done around the house this summer. Plus, we wanted to take a couple trips, and so we need to get a better look at our financial picture, where we could save some money to do things we wanted to do. And Monarch Money helped us cancel some subscriptions we forgot about and save the money we needed. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. All right, so we did hear from the three quarterbacks at the forefront of this conversation, I guess, for the Cleveland Browns today, from Dillon Gabriel, Joe Flacco, and even Shedeur Sanders, although we didn't really hear from him. I'll explain. And I wanted to play you a couple of the clips here. Obviously, we'll start with Dillon because Dillon is the man of the hour here, if you will, the quarterback that is becoming the starter and taking over the reins there. And he had some, comments about like how he feels prepared. Kevin Stefanski did let us know, as I mentioned, that he had taken some first team reps these first couple weeks of the regular season at practice. So he had some of that experience, but I thought, Dillon's perspective on this is interesting and how ready he feels for the opportunity.
Yeah, I think, from the beginning, this is the moment you look forward to as a competitor. But, it's part of my job, to be ready, to be that, sense of hope for everyone to continue to be better and come together and create momentum for each other. So excited for that, but just also extremely focused at doing my job at a high level.
How do you think you managed to stay ready over these first 4 weeks of the regular season?
Yeah, a lot of walkthroughs, a lot of meetings you got to be really tuned into. And then, I think just you look at all the work from beginning of OTAs and rookie minicamp to now, I think that's all installation that you can really pride yourself on and the reps built up. So moments, that build up and then to get here. But, like I said, it's extreme focus on just doing my job at a high level and continue to do that for one another.
Kevin had mentioned that you would receive some reps with the starters during the first month of the regular season. Can you kind of put like a percentage, like every day, how many plays it was, and how you think that's prepared you, even though you're going to get a full slate of practice reps this week?
I think as much as we could. I think reps here and there throughout practices, but also respecting, Flacco getting his reps throughout those weeks. So I think we try to fit in as much as possible. But, I think we also did a good job of that in training camp. So, like I said, you got to build those moments up to get to this moment. And I think a great week of prep will set us up for success.
Dylan also told a funny story about how he got a text message from a friend of his who sent him just like a picture of a fire station, and he didn't really get it, and how basically the friend ended up saying like, hey, at a fire station, you got all these different pieces and parts and things that kind of go into it, and the doors to the fire station are open and whatever. And, at a moment's notice, they're ready. And he used it as a metaphor of like, this is where I was at. For these first 4 weeks, I was just always ready. And so that's why he feels like he's ready for this moment. I thought it was an interesting sort of story there, sort of a fun one. And listen, Dylan is in many respects, like he's very Kevin Stefanski-esque in that he says very little. But I think today he was pretty, you could tell there was some emotion there. He was excited about the opportunity. I think he was pretty genuine in general today, and it wasn't just completely vague about things. He admitted that there's some emotions attached to this, and you always dream of this opportunity. But listen, if the Browns believe he's ready, they've felt that way clearly. I think as we saw this quarterback competition unfold throughout much of training camp, that he was more prepared than other quarterbacks on the roster, and was good enough that they are ready enough that he could be tasked with being the first guy up if something happened. Like, he was a play away from starting any of these first 4 weeks too, or playing any of these first 4 weeks. So we'll see how it all shakes out on Sunday. But I do think he's taken the right approach to it, obviously, as he has from the very beginning. And the idea here is that he sparks some things. I think there is something to be said for moving him out of the pocket, creating more opportunities. Again, Brian Flores' defense, we know, likes to blitz a lot. This offensive line struggled. That's one of the big issues they have right now. But if you can at least move the pocket, you couldn't do that with Flacco. Roll him out, get him doing some things downfield. I think that serves to benefit him and the offense in general. And so there's some opportunities there that I think the Browns are going to take advantage of. And that's another reason why I understand the move. Well, here, let me play you what Flacco had to say. Obviously disappointed in the decision from a standpoint of he just wishes he had played better. But I think what's interesting here from Flacco, and we'll talk about this a little bit too, Kevin Stefanski was adamant that like Joe is still an important part of this team and his leadership in particular. Here's what Joe said, and we'll reflect on it.
Well, I think the tougher thing is just going through what we've gone through the last 4 weeks and just not being able to produce the way we've wanted to. Listen, when you're in the moment and you're having conversations with people, it is what it is. You look people in the eye and you tell them how it is, and that's what it is.
Joe, what was your conversation like with Kevin, and did you kind of foresee this coming?
I don't think I foresaw it. Listen, I think I said it on Sunday. Anytime you're in this league, I mean, everybody's always getting evaluated, and the job of a quarterback is to help your team win football games. So I don't know if I foresaw it coming. But listen, me and Kevin can have a good conversation. It wasn't like it was anything super long or drawn out like that, but got to the point and had a good conversation with him about it, and it is what it is.
Kevin said just how important your leadership is as part of this team, regardless of your role. Just how do you sort of transition, and what's that role kind of look like for you as you continue to be a leader? Just like
I think just be myself. Obviously, that it can be tricky. I don't think you can put too much thought into it. Like I said, it's just being yourself, coming to work every day, giving it your all, and keeping that same routine that you have, even if when you were the guy. Just still being able to show everybody that you can come to work and still get it all done, even though it's not necessarily the same situation.
That last comment in particular, I think, echoes what Kevin Stefanski said, where he made it very clear, like, Joe Flacco's a captain on this team. Joe Flacco still is going to have value to this team. Dylan talked glowingly. I didn't want to play just all audio the entire podcast here, but he talked glowingly about Flacco and his impact and how he's just helped him along the way, and he's not a mentor, but he asks a lot of questions, and Flacco's always ready to answer, and how he expects he's going to continue to do that here. So, just because Flacco's now the backup doesn't mean his presence won't be felt. And I think you heard it from Flacco there. Like, he understood the decision. That doesn't mean he loved it, but he's been in situations like this before. And when the offense is performing well, he can, and that's the thing that I go back to when we talk about, how do you sell this to the locker room? I think it becomes kind of an easy sell when the offense is as bad as it is. It's hard for Flacco to stand there and be like, I still deserve this job, when he knows, not that he doesn't want it, but like, if you lay out for him and he was understanding of the fact that the offense wasn't performing well, yeah, it makes sense that he could accept why it's happening, even if he didn't love it. And I think that's the same thing that applies to this locker room. Is like, they might have felt like Flacco was the best option, but given how the offense is played, yeah, of course they could wrap their heads around why a change might be necessary here, or a good thing, or a positive thing to get things on track, or try to get things on track. So it doesn't have to be this idea that they're now pivoting to just tank mode just yet, but I'm sure people read it that way. I think this is about Kevin Stefanski trying to do something to save the offense. Now, we also I can't really say we talked to him. We tried to talk to him, Shedeur Sanders, and he didn't really have much to say. He basically pantomimed answers to our questions about, how he felt about the quarterback decision. I probably will use this in a future episode of the pod, because I'm going to this one's dropping now. For those on YouTube, it's live. For those on the audio ones, it's dropping in here Wednesday later in the day. But I will drop a second episode that probably goes up first thing Thursday morning, or like super early Thursday morning. And for that one, I'm going to talk mostly about Shedeur, and I probably should just play the video for you guys on that episode, because it's, you hear the questions and there's no answers. He basically just pantomimed answers. And I know that it's going to be interpreted a certain way. I can't help but think that it was sort of a targeted thing. Not targeted, but like, Shedeur knows that there's people criticizing him all the time. I mean, Rex Ryan was just on ESPN this week, saying that he runs his mouth too much. So that was kind of where my mind went first, was, well, maybe he just decided, I'm going to do this because I don't want to be caught or accused of running my mouth too much this week as a third string quarterback. Because that's what people are saying, is, why is a third string quarterback talking? So he didn't talk. He also could have just told us he didn't want to talk, or he wasn't going to talk. That would have been fine too. Players are more than capable and within the right to do so. But he chose to take that route to it. And I think it's kind of taken on a life of its own, because people are looking at it and feel like he is being immature. I don't know how him just saying I wasn't going to talk would have been interpreted. Probably not great, because they would have been like, oh, the guy that you're in direct competition with as a rookie got promoted and you sort of stayed put. But I hope that people handle it responsibly. I don't think it's going to get handled responsibly. And I do think listen, we all know Shedeur wants to play. I will talk more about how this entire situation impacts his ability to play at some point this season. But I did think that was a very unique way of going about not answering questions. I can't say I've ever seen that before. Most people in the room had never seen that before. So a pretty wild day overall in Berea, between the change at quarterback and that sort of response from Shedeur Sanders. If you haven't seen the video, by the way, I will play it in a later episode, but you can also find it over at Spencito_, my Twitter handle, on the screen here. But yes, an eventful day out here in Berea. Plenty more to talk about from this quarterback change and situation, including how close are we a step closer to seeing Shedeur Sanders play at some point this season. If you like what you heard, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make Locked On Browns your first listen every day, wherever you get your podcast, and at the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. For your second listen, get that double dose of Locked On NFL with Tyler, the Madman Roland, giving you that shot of espresso to start your football day, plus Tony Wiggins with the barbershop with some of the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. You can find Locked On NFL wherever you get your podcast, and of course on YouTube. You can also keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs, Locked On Guardians, who extended this wild card series today. Congrats to them. Thank you for being an everyday at the Locked On Podcast Network. I'll talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See ya.